All right, now we're live behind the scenes.
Yay.
Shoot,
And don't tell me.
I was saying in the shower, I had another thought, and now I can't remember what it was.
And I think if nothing else, I love what you said about the tips. Don't tell me what you are naturally.
No, I won't, but I have 3 that aren't on the article we're going to share that not work for me, but that I pondered. Do you know what I'm saying? So that
Yes.
I'll share. So I'll share those. And then I also have another article, which is kind of humorous, which I'll share, which also has to do with optimism, which I'll keep a surprise for you just because I think you'll think it's funny.
Perfect.
And it has some really good nuggets I'll read as well, because it kind of reinforces the whole why we're doing this topic. Do you know what I'm saying?
Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting, I also have my Wick-Wicker of the week open. I have the article. Yay. And I have my second article, and
I'm close. I am the
close. I'm positioning everything on my screen. Thank you. All right, bye. Have fun. They're going out to lunch.
They are. That's so nice. I'm going to take my parents who are visiting and hopefully moving here out to lunch.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Finally good. Blah, 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 blah. Perfect. Oh, I've got so many insights. And before we start, I should say I'm still hoping. Actually, I think I've told her. I know I've probably told her, but I wouldn't mind if my mom never listened to the podcast, because they've been visiting and I've had some really interesting insights.
Cool. Okay. And I was gonna talk about, so when we do our intro, talking about stuff, my lack of sleep last night, and yeah, so just like chitty. We'll do chitter chatter. And we
chitty bang bang. Okay, and yes, I have got to talk really quickly about the meditation in the beginning too.
Oh yeah, I missed what.
Oh my gosh, hilarious. I mean, I laughed that it got 67, 68 shares, which I've never had that.
I totally missed it. I don't know how I did, but I totally missed. Well, I know how I did, but
you bring it in.
So you're going to share that on the podcast? Okay.
I just wanted to kind of mention it because yes. So it's podcast 25. Yes.
Yes. I will try not to cough in our listeners' ears. All right.
I'm set whenever you're set.
Are we ready? We're ready.
You can bring it in.
Okay. I shall bring it in. Welcome to Wick Podcast, episode 25, the very special Optimism episode. I'm always like arguing with if I want to say optimist or optimism in my head.
I love that I walked with my daughter this morning with the dog, and I thought, oh, this is on my mind. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to explain it to her, make sure that she remembers we've talked about it before and what it is. So I give her this lovely, what I thought was short. This is optimism. This is pessimism. And when I'm done, she says, okay, Mom, anyway, do you think that's a toy poodle or a mini poodle? And she points to the neighbor's dog. I'm like, okay, listen to none of that. So apparently she doesn't care. Not yet.
You know what? I think, but I still feel like she's probably absorbed everything you said. Like I get that.
Kids, natural optimists. What do you think about that? Or are we just who we are when we're young?
Yeah, you don't generally. I mean, I guess there's a handful of pessimistic kids. I don't know. I have. This is where I argue with myself how I should bring up people that are close to me and whether or not they listen to the podcast. But my niece is not a very happy child, and I wonder if it's she. I mean, she's a happy kid, but she's not a smiley, giggly kid. You know how like most kids are kind of, I mean, most kids I know are smiley, giggly kids. And she's
the
kind
that
of
old soul element?
Yes, she's a very old soul.
And is it pessimism then for her, or is it just realism? Because I did not have that as a kid.
Yes. Well, it's funny because I'll give an example, so then maybe we can decide together. Because like last year, for example, she has similar glasses to my purple glasses, and I was like, oh, look at our glasses. They're this, I was doing that like adult great aunt thing where I'm like trying to relate to her. She's 4, 5. And I'm like, look, our glasses are the same. How cool is that? And she's like, straight face, like, whatever, lady. Why is that cool? Like,
yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, I don't know if I would describe her as pessimistic. See, this is what I mean. I argue in my brain, I can't never get out pessimistic or pessimist. I jargle the two in my brain. But yeah, no, I doubt she is. It's just that it's funny to me because she doesn't hold that quality that we generally equate to children of being like happy and, the whole like toddler speak, like, hey, how are you guys? Like, she's just kind of like, she's like straight face. She doesn't smile that much. And I'm like, okay, sorry.
And I wonder if we're hard, and I know we'll get into this, but I do believe we are hardwired one way or the other.
Do you?
I do.
That's interesting.
We won't get muddled there because I know we're going to talk about other things. And I know that you're getting the tongue twisters because you haven't had a lot of what lately?
I have not gotten a lot of sleep. Well, tonight. Last night.
See?
No, you're right. My mind is not there because last night I promised myself yet again I would go to bed early. And then yet again, I just don't. And I can't.
And what's early?
So for me, anything before 11 is early. And it's just the nature of my day. So like I'm finding that as Ryan gets older, he's up later, and then the husband and I don't have that. The kids are in bed at 8, 2-hour time where we can just watch a show. And then I'm trying to do my post. We're trying to get the baths done. We're trying to and then all of a sudden it's like 9:30, and I'm like, when did it become not like? And I'm falling asleep. Like I'm tired, falling asleep, tired. My body is tired. I could, if my head hit a pillow, go to sleep. But then I'm like, I haven't seen the husband all day. We've both been working. He had tennis. I hung out with the kids, but just juggling life.
Yes.
And I think this is, to me, I feel like this is a point in a relationship where, yeah, I could just go to bed, but then we start to, when I do that, we start to get out of sync because we're not spending any time together, even just something as silly as watching a TV show.
It's such a common refrain, and I know it's not a popular notion, but I do think I'm going to get flack for this. It's a little bit easier, just a little bit, to maintain the marriage when there aren't kids, only for those reasons. There's no one to bathe at night. There's no one to say, did you brush your teeth? And I know it's hard. And I also don't think, because I know since we adopted her later in life-ish, there was a lot of, you can stay late because you don't have kids. Now, I disagree with that. You have a life, go, go, go. But I do think it's easier to maintain the relationship because there's not as much butt wiping and teeth brushing, nagging.
I 100% agree. And I don't know if you will get flack for that because I think relationships
still work.
I have friends that are in relationships that don't have kids. Yeah, it's definitely still, it's still any long-term. And I would disagree with anyone who says that relationships don't work. I am, in this sense, a realist. So I had this conversation with the husband. I don't think love exists in the way that we portray it in movies and sitcoms and, love it. I don't buy into that. I think, to be frank, it's BS. I think you could be initially attracted to someone. But I don't believe that
not and find love. I think that's
I agree.
Too. Yeah.
I don't believe in the whole love conquers all and as long as we have love, we'll be fine. And I don't buy into that. I just think relationships take work and not in a negative way. I just think
it goes back to what we talked about. When did work become a dirty word? But it feels like there's more time. You could start the working on the relationship at even 8:30 as opposed to thinking, oh crap, it's 10. Let's start being with each other because now the kids are asleep.
Well, and maybe from the outside it seems so cheesy. But for me, it's like so last night we watched an episode of The Orange is the New Black. And it was I think 10 to 10. And I said, I really should go to bed. Now we've spent 40 minutes. I'm working, mind you, because I did my post. So we really weren't even connecting. We were chatting, but then I'm getting frustrated with him because he keeps distracting me and I can't just get the post done.
That you're doing
no, he doesn't. He doesn't seem to mind. He's not. It's funny because I think if roles were reversed, I would mind, and I own that. But
I would mind. I don't know.
I don't know. But he's so used to it because I've been juggling that for so long. But then I was done. I closed the laptop, And he's like, oh, I really want to watch this new show, this Mr. Robot show.
I saw you mention that on Facebook. I was like,
and I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, let's start it. And if I get maybe I'll just, because there's been times where I'll just fall asleep on his lap. Like I'll have my head in his lap and we'll watch a show and I'll fall asleep on the couch and then I'll like a zombie go to bed. And then we'll feel like at least we've, connected for the day. And the show sucked me right in. So now it's like 10:30, 10:45. The show is an hour and 10 minutes for some really strange reason. And but I was enjoying it, and like and we're talking about it, and I put it up on Facebook, and I'm like, this is what I want. Like I want this time together. It's so important for us and for our relationship is so important. And I'm like, if I would have just went to bed at 9:30, we would have missed that. So now, but layered on top of that, when I went to bed, I could now not fall asleep. Even though I was exhausted.
Yes.
And then I'm angry at myself, because now I'm like, what's wrong with me? And then it's 11:30 and then I kind of doze off and then I wake back up and I look and it's 12:30.
Oh no.
And then
I hate that too.
And my alarm was going off at 5:35 because I set it for literally 5:35. I can get up, brush my teeth, put my sneakers on and go and be my head, like if I only, and it's keeping me awake and I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? But I woke up still without the alarm at 5:30 anyway, exhausted, but I was like, and I struggled. Should I stay in bed because I'm tired and I need my sleep and I know how important that is? But then I'm like, what am I going to get? Another hour of interrupted sleep?
I never pick that. Yes, I think this is another personality thing. Maybe this is a whole different podcast. I'm not a snooze button person.
No,
even when I was younger, I'm just like, I'm giving up. I have never, ever. Yes. And I've never blown off getting up in the past 20 years. I've had to get up in the morning because, I just feel worse. It's the emotional and physical worse. I don't get more rest. And then I'm mad because I'm like, I missed that time. That was just me.
I agree. Well, yeah. Because then I'm like, then I'm looking ahead of the day too. I'm like, if I don't go to the class at 6, I can't go at 7:30 because of this and this. I can't go at noon today because I have a meeting with my accountant. I can't go to the afternoon. Today's the first day this week that he doesn't have tennis. So I'm like, I'm not going to take our family time away on a Wednesday night. Yeah. So it's like, I'm looking ahead and going, no, I have to do. And then I'm like, and the 4-year-old's going to be up in a half hour anyway. So again, it's not like I'm going to be sleeping. So I dragged my butt out of bed and I wicked and I went to the gym on 4 hours of sleep, which probably wasn't the best thing to do. But then I felt, better, like, because then I had my outlet at least. And now I felt like I took care of me.
Oh my gosh,
and some people might
have
so much other decision. Like they would have made the sleeping would have been taking care of them, which I totally get. Gym was the taking care of me kind of thing,
And it's the emotional. I may not physically be able to tell the difference between getting up and taking a walk, whatever it is, but it just changes my attitude towards the whole day. And it can actually, which dovetails perfectly into our topic, I think that's why I'm an optimist. And we could get more into that. But I think things like that, it's for me, consistent choices I make because yes, I can easily be shifted toward pessimist. I think I'm right on that cusp all the time.
I agree. Yeah, I will define myself as a realist with optimistic tendencies. Does that, or at least that's what I strive to be. I strive to be, although I might be an idealist. What's an idealist? What is that?
I would say, okay, so if we're talking about optimism versus pessimism, and you say you're a realist with optimistic tendencies, for me, idealist, and I love that you're looking this up because for me, idealist is to, like I'll say to you often, and I say to all my other good friends often when they have a struggle or problem, can I be Susie Sunshine for a minute? Because that's what I think of with the idealist. Like, oh no, you cut off your arm. It is not a big deal because it's totally going to work out great. Like I think,
almost to a fault, you mean? Yeah.
Starry-eyed. Yes. And what's the definition?
Yeah. So the official definition, of course, according to Google, is idealism, the practice of forming or pursuing ideals, especially unrealistically.
Oh, see, and that's what I think. Okay, so now let's go back to you to start with. When you were little, up until now, what would be your natural tendency with absolutely no effort? And can we figure that out now that we're over the age of like 18? Can we go back to that?
I don't know. It's, you know what? I've always been a smiler. I remember people pointing out to me, even working at McDonald's, you're so happy all the time. Even
That's
when I
super
think
interesting.
on the inside, like I felt like sometimes I feel like that was my coping mechanism. Like I wanted to be the happy person. But it's funny because
Yes.
I struggle with myself though, because then sometimes, see, my problem is I self-analyze so much to a fault where I think I'm always sometimes never truly myself because I'm always thinking about the way I'll be perceived. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's not a
Yeah.
good thing. I don't think that's a good thing. So I think sometimes when I hear people making fun of optimists, I don't want to be associated with an optimist because I do feel like you can be optimistic to a fault, and you just don't want to be. You don't want to be like, okay, like I'll use a pop culture reference because that's what we're good at. You don't want to be the Office Space girl going, does someone have a case of the Mondays? And being that like Office cheerleader.
Gosh. Yes.
Yet if I'm being really, really honest with myself, I think I tend to go in that direction. But I hold it back because of the perception of people who are generally happy. So like I have to refrain myself sometimes on social media from saying things like happy Wednesday, happy Thursday. Like it's just so, yeah, I think I am naturally bubbly, but I'm also aware of my bubbliness. And so I tried to keep it at bay. And part of me wishes I was a little bit more not so, like a little bit more sarcastic. And I am sarcastic, but I'm always sarcastic in like a happy way.
No, I hear what you're saying. And yet it seems like, okay, it depends. Oh my gosh, I said to someone recently and they did not get this. And I thought, dating myself. The whole Bill Clinton, it depends on what your definition of is. My whole thing with Monica Lewinsky. But I think it almost depends on your definition of optimism and pessimism. Like when you say, I wish I were a little more the other way, I think what I hear you saying is I wish I were a little more, because this is going to be the wrong phrase too, not, yes, I mean, it's the, not pessimistic to me, but it's my definition is negative. And it's, I love, obviously, my mom to death. I love being around her, but they're visiting. And this blew my mind. And I immediately thought, because you and I talked about, we should do this topic. We pulled up, it was July 4th. Was it that morning? Maybe it was Friday. So the 3rd, to a place I know serves breakfast. So we pull up, parking lot empty, drive-through closed. I'm like, interesting. They serve breakfast, whatever. Let's go see. And my mom looks at me and says, it's closed. And I was like, okay, but I know they serve breakfast. I don't know. It could be because it's 4th of July weekend, but it's not 4th of July. So let's go check. It's closed. So she walks up to the door, gets like 10 steps away. She really wanted to go there, turns around, it's closed. I was like, we're not even going to try the door. So I walk up, try the door, open, let's go in. And
it's opened?
That to me is how I view pessimism, cutting yourself off at the knees or whatever the phrase is. Just, wow, she would be so quick to say,
yes,
there's no one here. It's not open. She really wanted to go there. She didn't even try the door and it was open.
That's a great example. You're right. And I don't want to be that person because I feel like you're cutting yourself short. It's funny because my mother-in-law said the same thing about, now it's funny.
Getting in your own way.
Yeah, you're getting in your way. Well, and even so, we like we always say, wick, park far away, get more steps in, right? So now we kind of changed this kind of approach. But my mother-in-law said the one time, my husband, I always look for a close spot if we're in a hurry. Like I'll look for the close spot. He's like, why are you even looking? There's never going to be a spot. And I'm like, well, if you don't look, you'll never know. And that's so my mother-in-law would be an optimist because she's the one, she's like, I remember she brought up an article or something where she was like, if you never look, you'll never know. And then what's the alternative? There's not a close spot, so you park far away anyway. So you wasted, 13 seconds looking for the close spot?
Yes.
So
It is that quote we shared on the What You Can, When You Can, like us on Facebook. On the Facebook page that says opportunity dances shoot. Is it opportunity or luck? One of them dances with those already on the dance floor. I think it's luck. So you need to be out there dancing, and luck may meet you. There might be a spot, but it's not going to come to you and say, hey, you're parking far away, but there's something up front. Come on.
Right. Well, and if you are the kind of person, maybe I don't even truly understand the pessimist, because if you keep, what's the expression you use? Cutting yourself off at the legs?
Getting yourself off at the knees, or getting in your own way. Now that I say that other phrase, I'm like, oh, that's not nice.
Yeah, but it makes sense, because you basically never allow yourself, you don't put yourself out there. It's like kind of the same concept of not putting yourself, if you don't put yourself out there, you'll never know. And you could say that about anything. Like, you could say, well, I might as well not go to college. I'm not going to get a job anyway.
Yes, for me, yes, it's lack of hope, lack of confidence in what's to come. It's digging up in doubt what you planted in faith. Now, I don't know that my mom would plant anything in faith, but I almost fell over. I thought, you really want to go here? There's not the same restaurant on the East Coast. And she didn't even try the door. It blew my mind. I thought, wow.
You know, it's funny because... all right, I'm going to bring up my first article that you don't know.
Great.
So this is going to be a surprise, only because I feel like it's a really good transition into this, because so the article was on Elite Daily. I saw someone posted it on Facebook, I think, and it says the title is "Optimistic people all have one thing in common: they're always late." Have you seen this article at all?
No. Interesting.
Okay, so at first, and I clicked on it, because frankly, the older I get, I'm always late for things anymore. And I don't like that part of myself. Like, I don't like it about myself. And I try to teach my kids not to be late. But the truth be told, like, how many times am I 5 after when we're meeting at noon, even for the podcast? And the reason why is because I'll look at the clock and I'll say, okay, it's 11:40. I have time to reply to this email, and then I'll take a shower, and then I'll grab a drink, and I'll be all ready and I never can fit it in that time.
Oh,
like,
see,
but
yes,
in my
right. I am a pessimist with that, because I think, I probably don't have enough time.
Yes, and I'm optimistic. So this article says, and I'm just going to skip. We'll share this on the blog for those who want to read it and feel better about their lateness. But it says here, people who are continuously late are actually just more optimistic. They believe they can fit more tasks into a limited amount of time, more than other people, and thrive when they're multitasking. Simply put, they're fundamentally hopeful. While this makes them unrealistic and bad estimates of time, it also pays off in the long run in other ways. And the article goes on, and I'll get a couple other nuggets for us in a bit, but about how important it is for people to be optimists, and what the health benefits are of actually being an optimist. Yeah. Sorry.
That is really interesting, because I would definitely say, and I've said it for years, in the sense of, because we used to go back to the old, and I don't hear this as much as your glass. I think it's too black and white, the half empty versus half full.
Yes.
Interesting analogy 20 years ago. But I used to always say, my glass is overflowing. So mine is, can I pour some in yours? And I really feel that way on a day-to-day basis. But you're right. I'm a pessimist when it comes to, that's why I'm always early, because I'm like, oh, it's 20 to 11. I can't shower and do all this stuff. I should probably stay, so I'm ready on time. You're right.
Yeah, no, and I'm the complete opposite. And well, it's funny, the whole glass half empty, half full thing. Have you seen someone shared this in our tribe, which was the glass half empty or half full. People are missing the point. The glass is refillable. Yes. And I love that.
When I first saw it, I was like, oh, yes. And I don't hear that as often anymore.
That's an optimistic viewpoint, though, I think, because I get the pessimist would be, but the glass is breakable, or something.
Oh, you know what I mean? And I used to joke about that as a kid with my mom. And again, I firmly believe this is her chemical composition, just viewing. And I bet in lots of things, it works in her favor. I'd be curious to hear from other people and I know we have a lot of people in our tribe who define themselves as pessimists, say they work to be more optimistic, but I've seen my mom be happily surprised in so many situations. From our book, oh, you guys aren't going to get this published. All of it.
Yes.
That it ends up being, oh, happily surprised, because her first reaction to everything is, this will not work. And when it does,
Well, that's
wow, didn't see that coming.
That's funny because mentally I prepare for the worst, which always makes me pleasantly surprised. That's a coping mechanism for myself. So like if I'm doing something, I'll just think, even if I write a post, I think this is going to not be received very well. And then I'm pleasantly surprised when people relate to it. So I kind of use that as a as I don't know, like a coping or a preventative. It's how I prepare myself for the worst, which I think.
And is there a difference between preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, and being a pessimist? Do the pessimists do that second half, or do they just prepare for the worst?
See, well, and here's where I don't know if this makes me a realist or not. This is what I'll say. I don't think people fit into specific optimists and pessimists. Just like I don't feel like, and I'll be totally honest, this is why I roll when people share the introverted stuff, because I feel like no one fits one or the other 100%. And so in a way, when we try to pigeonhole ourselves into these categories and say, well, I'm an optimist, I'm a pessimist, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, you kind of, in a weird way, are setting yourself up for, I don't know, you're pigeonholing yourself, really, aren't you? Aren't you defining yourself as one way? And then you've kind of blocked off an area of yourself where you can possibly learn something else about yourself, or another way to cope, or another way to deal with things.
I still find it fascinating. And I know we sometimes get comments on the behind the scenes video, and I would love people to chime in. How many people I know who truly identify as pessimists, that if left to their own devices, and I can think of a couple that you and I know in common, they freely admit, oh my gosh, yes, I think nothing will work out. This is never, just won't happen. I might be invited somewhere. It's not going to happen. And yet they don't see it as, and this is most fascinating to me, being depressed, because they're not depressed. It's
just the way they're wired.
Their life perspective. Yes. And so I find that so interesting, because that's not my default. Although, now that I'm getting overexcited, when I hear you talking like you did at the beginning about you go to bed at 11, I think I'm almost on a, wrong term, circadian rhythm. But when I wake, I'm a super optimist, especially on Mondays. But at 4 or 5 in the morning, I think this is the day. It is going to happen. I don't even know what it is, but it will be today. And then come 8 o'clock, I'm like, it is not happening today. I am over this and I'm ready to be done. At 11, I think I could be seen as a pessimist because it's not happening today. I just want to go to bed.
So you transition from optimist to pessimist throughout your day. It's a gradient for you.
It is. And I was thinking, we were talking about tips, that mine, I think I've morphed into being a pessimist in 2 ways. The first was finally turning inside out my own words of, it used to really work for me to say, okay, I'm going to try this. We're going to write this book. What's the worst that could happen? For me, rephrasing that to, oh my gosh, we're writing this book. We might have a contract. What's the best that could happen? So that was life altering for me in becoming a pessimist, but it's also, because I have not always been like this, for me becoming a lark. When I kind of got up in the middle, I woke up and stayed in the middle all day. And now that I'm a lark, I love the morning. And that has really helped increase my optimism.
But see, so don't you feel that you've consciously made an effort to change the way that you're thinking? And so when we talk about things like that, then I feel like the concept of, we're just born a certain way, or our brain chemistry defines us as a pessimist or optimist, is kind of there. I feel like we might be predisposed, but we could change. Right. So, and this might be a really weird example. You tell me if I'm completely off base, but like I love riddles. I love riddles. Like we used to play this game called Mind Games, and someone out there will have to tell me if they've heard of it. It's a riddle game, and the husband and I used to play all the time, and I enjoy.
Wait, is it like a board game or?
It's like a card, like a card game. So
okay.
It is. So it's like you read a riddle and then you have to solve it.
It wasn't like your own.
No. Okay. It's something you could buy at Target. Yes. But I have this hypothesis that you could get better at riddles because you start to learn the way that a riddle is
Like a
generally
muscle.
defined. Yes. So, and I've been trying to tell this to the 10-year-old who, of course, he is now at this age, because he doesn't have a lot of life experience, very easily fooled by a riddle, like one of those ones where it'll just be a trick of the word. Like we know that humans will assume a female versus a male. And so you ever heard that one? It's like you assume the doctor in the riddle is a male because that's what you're
one. Yes.
Right. So you know what I'm talking about? So those
Yeah.
kinds of things. But once you hear it, you kind of built that life experience, and you can apply that to when you hear another riddle or another riddle. So you get better at riddles because you learn the way the riddle is working, right? So you learn to look for the keywords, you learn to look for the twist, you learn to look for what you personally, what you're bringing in as a stereotype or a cultural reference.
Yes.
Right. So my argument would be is if you learn how optimism helps you and tricks to be more optimistic, aren't you in a way teaching yourself to be more optimistic, just like you could teach yourself to get better at riddles or teach. So it's kind of like a muscle. And we talked about that. I think, wasn't that what was in what's her face's speech? Robin.
Yes.
Remember a couple episodes ago we talked about where she said you have to practice it. So just like confidence, you have to practice it. Sometimes some people are born completely confident, or they were raised to be completely confident. But for those of us who may not have, I truly believe, because I can see it in myself, I went from unconfident to more and more confident. And it's because I'm building that muscle. I'm throwing myself out there. I'm pushing myself through comfort zones. And then I'm coming out on the other end and the world didn't end. I didn't die. I didn't, I wasn't that utterly embarrassed or for whatever reason. And so I'm getting more and more nervy and more, as I age. So I want to believe that optimism is the same way.
Now, I completely agree with you. Totally, because I've learned that about myself. I do think it is a choice. And like I've said before, happened to me this morning. People say, "Hey, how are you?" Great. People do like that double take. And I'm like, it's a choice and I'm choosing great. Next question, ABC pest control guy. It's like,
well, and it could be
shocked.
you choose to say great, even though things aren't great, which we can have a whole argument about whether or not that's the right thing to do.
Are we saying, and this is like the crux of the question for me, which I don't have the answer. And I feel like I'm more of an optimist and it works better for me. Are we saying one is better than the other? I've been thinking about that. I wonder if hardcore pessimists think, oh, hell no, I think this is not going to work out. And then it does. And I'm propelled forward, but I'm shocked. And I wonder, can we say that one is better?
Well, let me go back to the article that I brought up.
Okay. Because I don't know.
Because I don't know if you could say one is better than the other for like coping emotionally and mentally. But according to this article, again, which I'll share, it says researchers have found optimism has a myriad of physical health benefits, from reducing stress, diminishing the risk of cardiovascular disease, to strengthening your immune system. So in that sense, I think being an optimist, or at least working on being an optimistic person, definitely has, well, I should say definitely, researchers have shown there's a correlation. That there are health benefits. I don't want to. I'm learning. By the way, this is another learned thing for me. I have learned to use the right words so people don't say. But it's true.
But you're right with the health, especially because I don't know, in business, perhaps there are people, I want to say men, but people who would think that pessimism serves them better in the world of business. But you're right. All the research and health, you get a terminal illness and the optimists live longer. So you're right.
Yes. It says, indeed, happiness and positivity have been linked to a longer life in general, and maintaining a positive outlook is also vital to achieving personal success. Research shows happiness increases overall productivity, creativity, and teamwork. So if you're generally
but happiness is that optimism. That would be another thing for me too, of I'm happy. I don't know if this is true because it's not me. And again, I don't think it's you. So I would be so interested in people chiming in. I'm happy with my life, very content, like my job, love my 3.2 kids and the dog and the husband, but I'm a pessimist. Are the two mutually exclusive? Is a pessimist
Wow.
have to be gloom and doom, or could they just think this
No,
probably isn't going to
I
work?
think I'm gonna bring that back to my idea that we're all a mix of both. That
Yes.
there's very few people I think that fall all black or all white or all in one camp and all in the other camp. I really just think, just like the introvert extrovert thing, I skew extroverted, but there are times in my life I don't want to be around people. I don't want to talk to people. I feel like an introvert. I relate to introverts.
Yes.
And then there's other times. Now, I mean, for me, it's like 80-20. But there's definitely a introverting technique, or, I definitely have some pessimistic qualities. And I think balancing them out is kind of what we as humans need to do for ourselves. Like, in a weird way, you have to balance yourself out. I don't know. That came out of nowhere.
No, but it actually makes so much sense because I'm out of nowhere as well. But I also think some of it becomes who you surround yourself with. I think it would be tough for someone who's, yeah, I'm happy with my life, but in general, I'm a pessimist, to be married to, let's use you as an example, just because you said I'm naturally kind of bubbly. But if they're with someone who's equally on their pessimistic level, they could really have that sort of happiness. I think a while ago, I would have thought you can't be happy and a pessimist. I've been thinking the past week or so, it really could work for some people.
Well, and the opposite is true. It's funny. I think because I'm generally am the happy person when I'm not. Like, so for example, sometimes I'll go to the gym and I just don't feel like talking to anyone today, or I'm just having a bad day, or then people are like, "What's wrong? What's wrong with you? What's wrong?" Like there's something wrong with me because I'm just
Big
having
deal.
a
Yes.
possible pessimistic day, or maybe I'm looking at things pessimistically right now, and then people just assume that there's something wrong, well, maybe there is something wrong. So there is that. But I think, yeah, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think you can sprinkle a little both in your life, basically.
But I'm curious to hear your 2 tips, because for me, it really was changing that. What's the best that could happen and becoming a lark? But I can't imagine. Can you imagine? Again, I keep going back to my mom. I wonder if I'm an optimist in reaction to her consistent pessimism. And she owns this about herself. I mean, it would be no surprise. So I don't know if some of it was that, but I can't imagine pulling up to the restaurant I really want to go to and not even trying the door. I can't imagine that being my natural tendency. And can you imagine that? And what are your 2 best tips for, okay, that is me? What would you say to my mom? What are your 2 best tips to become an optimist?
This is funny because so the one time Jen and I were flying, and she's very adamant about not being able to sleep on a plane. She's like, "You're so lucky you could sleep on a plane. I cannot sleep on the plane. I can't sleep on the plane." And I said to her one day, I just turned and went, "Have you tried? Or maybe if you said, I'm going to try." And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, well, maybe it's difficult for you, but maybe you can sleep on the plane, but you've convinced yourself now that you can. I'm like, if you're tired enough, you will sleep on the plane.
And those phrases key, convincing yourself.
Right. And I feel like she's convincing herself. So I'm trying to think of a way in which I do see myself. I do have, and see, I think this is a realistic quality, not a pessimistic quality. So sometimes, let's say, and this has happened to me more times than I would like to admit, I'm writing and whatever application I'm writing in crashes, and I didn't save, and I lost an entire article that I wrote. This has happened to me at least 3 times in the last year. And my initial reaction is to, no, there's no way it's gone. There has to be a backup save somewhere.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were going to say, no, I can't recreate it.
Well, and I take about 10 minutes and I go, no, I was writing it in WordPress. There has to be a web cache version. So I start researching. Can I figure this out? And I guess that's the optimist in me, thinking there's a way for me to recover it. But after about 10 minutes, I go, it's gone. Like, I can't waste any more time on my optimism in a weird way, right? I can't waste any of my time on this, and I have to move on. And so I think, but I guess my initial reaction is optimism. I don't know if I'm going in the other direction and being a pessimist when I realize it's gone. That's more of an acceptance of truth, right? So That was supposed to be my example about how I'm a little bit pessimist, but now I think I'm not at all.
No, and now you're making me reconsider, because that has happened to me so many times too. Do I have that moment? I guess I do check the drafts, but my first thought is, I'm becoming my mom. I think I can't redo this. I can't rewrite this. Well, yeah, I could, but it's going to be hard, whatever. But interesting, I don't think of myself as a pessimist.
I do the same thing, and I think there's no way I'm going to get it back to where it was. It was so good, and then I'm more angry. I'm angry it happened, but then after a few minutes, I start writing, and then I think, oh, this might be better.
Yes, that's what you're right, and I think you're right with the mix, because it becomes that you'd be crazy not to think, oh, I can't do this again. It'd be crazy to think, oh, well, lost it. This is an opportunity.
Right.
But
yes.
Yeah. That's
I don't go that far. That to me is like blind optimism. Yes.
Yes.
That's
interesting.
Funny. So wait, you had another article. Let's bring up this. So the original one that inspired this whole entire conversation.
Because this views it as a muscle, and it is from Greatest, and it talks about some psychologists think we learn to be optimists. Others believe it's a personality trait we're born with. And again, I have to go back, call to action. Are there people out there who believe, as I'm starting to think myself, why is pessimism necessarily negative if it's just part of your trait? We've really turned against pessimism. And I think there can be times when that's really helpful. But
I agree with you. There is times where having it.
Okay, but before becoming everything is awesome, know that being too optimistic can have a downside. Yeah. And I wrote a blog post about defensive pessimism. Now I'm remembering all of this because you and I have blogged for so long, and how that really it's being a realist. They were calling it defensive pessimism, but it was just being realistic about the situations. So Greatest wants to help us all to become a little more of the hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And here are some tips. And they say tips for seeing the glass half full. They're really basic, but the thing that I was struck by with reading this is it's like park further away from the grocery store entrance. Yeah, we all know this, but I personally, Carla, wasn't doing it before Wick Wick.
I was going to say, being reminded is like that riddle concept where, and now it'll be on the surface of your mind going, no, maybe if I look at it this way,
start doing it.
It'll be better. Yes.
And so it's find the good. And I do laugh. I say this to you all the time, and everybody, can I be Susie Sunshine? Because I know that finding the good when you're not doing it yourself can sometimes be annoying, but that's what they recommend. Find the good in all situations.
It's so funny because you do say that all the time.
I know. Can I be Susie Sunshine?
And I actually probably find myself saying the opposite, which is, can I play devil's advocate with this?
Oh my gosh. Interesting. Yes. And both are things that I always want to ask, because if somebody and people have said, you know what, no, I don't want to hear the upside right now. I'm like, okay, that's why I ask. But Greatest is recommending we start to do it ourselves. And I guess this is optimism to me. It's kind of veers much more towards gratitude. And I'm curious about what you think. Write it down. At the end of the day, write down a few good things that happened.
Yeah, see, this is so I'll bridge over to one of my tips, because I think this is a way to show gratitude. And I think when you are grateful, you generally are a happier person and more optimistic. And it could be anything as simple as like I'm trying to teach the kids, if they wanted something, I don't know, some crazy toy, but they only got this, or they didn't get anything at all. I'm thinking of all the things you do have. Think of all the things.
Yes.
So I try to always get them to acknowledge how lucky is the word. I don't know what other word, but just to acknowledge everything that all of the resources they have available to them, and just to be grateful that they're for what they have. And I think that's a way people who are generally more grateful are happier. It doesn't matter. I think
optimistic.
Yeah, I don't think it matters what lot you have in life. Like you could. If you're grateful for what you have, you're generally a happier person because you are acknowledging something that makes you happy. I don't know how to say that.
Because what you're fortunate enough to have, but it becomes back to, okay, this also in the greatest article didn't fit for me. And I wonder if it fit for you. They mention a way to become an optimist is to forget the green-eyed monster. And that rang so close again to me for gratitude. To me, optimism is life is good. This will all work out. I have hope and confidence in the future, which has nothing, that came out of left field for me. It has nothing to do with this will all work out. Everything's going to be great in the future. Look, Susie has 2 scoops of ice cream and I only have 1. It didn't fit for me.
Right. Well, optimism. But don't you think someone who's a pessimist would be naturally inclined to constantly think, well, yeah, what I have is great, but so-and-so has this, and I really want that too. Like, isn't that a pessimistic view versus the optimist view is what I have is great. Nothing else. I don't need anything else. I'm good. Like, is that,
yeah.
So,
and I think you're right. Because I think of pessimism because it's the pessimism I've experienced in others is doom and gloom. Don't try that. It will crash and burn. It had nothing to do with don't try that. It will crash and burn. That Mark Zuckerberg, he's really successful.
I would argue though, then it's also though, well, I can't be happy because I haven't gotten this yet, or I haven't attained.
I never thought of it like that.
So the pessimistic view would be, well, yeah, that's great. I got my degree and I got a job, but I'm not CEO yet. And that's really what my goal is. Like, so it's this never acknowledged, like you're just never happy, which is the opposite of acknowledging what you're grateful for and what it is that you already have and seeing it as a positive versus a negative that you haven't attained something else. Like you're constantly trying to attain something else. I mean, we could do the same thing with weight loss or like people who are grateful. And I saw this in the community this week where someone acknowledging that you're making progress is an optimistic view, even though maybe the scale hasn't reflected that yet, or maybe you're still not wearing the size you want to wear. But it's so much better than stepping on the scale and then being pessimistic. Well, even though I've made all these positive changes in my life, even though I'm now running and eating avocados and doing whatever.
Oh, the golden doodle is chiming in. The
golden doodle is back.
I'm an optimist. But now it goes back then to it being learned, because I think about what you said with the kids and how I'll frequently say,
no, let's pause.
Charming. No.
Now I can cough. At least I can cough now. I can cough and now have to edit it out instead of muting myself because I keep coughing. Oh. Wait, you muted yourself. Wait. I can't hear you. There you go. Oh.
Now.
Oh, I hear you now. Yes.
Okay. It reminds me of how with kids, and this is why I think you're right that we learn it. I don't know if you experience this, but sometimes it feels like it's just never enough. And so I think that's trying to teach them optimism.
What's she barking at?
I don't know.
Or
Amazon?
He?
I hope not. He
or
it reminds
she?
me of how with kids sometimes it's just never enough. And I find that I quote Dr. Seuss. I think of and I guess this is about optimism and pessimism. Don't be sad because it's over, or don't cry because it's over. I could be getting it wrong. Be grateful or happy because it happened.
Yes, which is our saying around our house is you get what you get, you don't get upset. Which is probably a realistic.
I love that from preschool, and it fits. Sometimes I want to say that to grown-ups in my life.
Yes. You get what you get. And we say it all the time. It's really funny.
See, we say throw a fit, where we get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
That's right. We talked about this last week, I think. We're getting so old, we're repeating ourselves in the podcast. Just,
I'm optimistic. So People love to hear it twice.
Yeah. Or I'm optimistic that they skipped last week, so they don't think we're actually repeating.
Oh, there you
or is
go.
that the pessimistic? That might be the pessimistic view.
I just think it's been interesting because as what happens so often when we do these podcasts, I start off thinking one way, and I think I would have said that optimism is really the only way to go because of all the research. And now I think naturally being a pessimist, there might be some benefits there. I think we've become too much there's been a backlash, but you must be an extrovert. You should be an optimist. And yes, there's been much more coming back around for introverts. And I wonder if that will ever happen with pessimism.
I think I've seen it. I've seen articles kind of glorifying pessimism. I still would argue, and maybe it's because it's my default, that there's always a benefit to looking more positively at things than negatively. I'm not saying that there's no benefit to looking at things negatively. I think you have to weigh out the negative, but I'd rather go through life on more optimistic than pessimistic. I'd rather keep my pessimism at bay and use it to my advantage, but overall be an optimistic person for the other myriad. I'm happier. I mean, who can argue with being happy? I mean, maybe there are some people that would argue that, but I would rather be happy than pessimistic. It's funny because for some reason this just popped into my head, and you have to tell me if it's relevant or not, or if I'm going off on a tangent. So last week I posted a video on YouTube, just a cheesy video of my family at dinner, and the 4-year-old, and I think you've seen this, right? The 4-year-old was singing, and I thought it was hysterical, and we were laughing about it, and he was singing with a mouthful of food. I didn't even think anything of it. That's the funny thing. We were just having a good time. We were sitting around the island. It was midweek, and I'm just proud of us that we sit down for dinner most nights together as a family. And so I shared it because it was just one of those things, like we talked about last week. I shared something in my life that just made me smile that day on the blog, and that's how I journal, or that's how I meditate. But I got some backlash on that, and saying that I wasn't teaching my kids manners, and I'm going to regret it as they get older. And I thought, what a horrible view. Like, I mean, I guess I kind of see where it's coming from, but I feel like we kind of don't live in the age anymore. Like, I have this vision of maybe, like, I don't know, the 1800s, where everyone needs to sit formal at the dinner table and no one can speak unless the father speaks. And it must be this, they have the place settings. And meanwhile, we're like grabbing plates and sitting down and chatting about our day and yelling at the 4-year-old because he won't eat. And it's mass havoc.
Yes.
But we're happy. We're spending time together. And in the end of the day, to me, I value that more than, I don't know, being prim and proper. And
perfect in the sense of, if that's the first thing the person saw, that's really sad. I mean, of course I say this as an optimist too, but if that's what they saw and all they saw, no, I think that fits perfectly.
Do you think I'm sorry, man, I don't know why that popped in my head, but to me, I'd rather be the person that looks at a 4-year-old eating dinner with their family, full mouth, singing Iggy Azalea, and everyone laughing as a positive, than go, that kid's not going to grow up with any manners. Like, that to me is a very pessimistic view. Don't you look at that kid and go, well, there's a well-adjusted kid that's going to grow up happy and be a positive member of society.
It seems tiring. Yeah. I think that's pessimism. And again, just not blanket, but people I know, it appears very exhausting.
Yes, I thought, well, and it kind of struck me because I didn't think about it too. And I thought, yeah, I guess my kids are being really rude, but I don't care. We were having a good time. Like, that was literally how
Yes.
And I'm thinking, if we were at a formal dinner, or if they were at a wedding, of course we wouldn't do that. Of course I would teach them, and I have, that you know, when we're at a restaurant, oh my gosh, when we're at a restaurant, all like, sit down, you can't do that at a restaurant. I mean, and of course he's 4. Isn't this when he's learning that? Like, you can't expect the 4-year-old to have the manners. You're teaching them the manners. So, which I always found really funny when people kind of get on parents about their kids misbehaving. I'm like, but are they correcting it? Because this is a teaching moment.
Yes.
That's a good thing. Yeah. It would be different if the kid was bouncing off walls and no one was correcting them. Okay. But if the kid's bouncing off walls and the parent is using it as a learning thing, then my optimistic view is that, yeah, they're children. This is the time we molding them and teaching them, instead of thinking that mother has no control and they didn't teach her kid any manners. That would be the pessimistic view. But yeah, I guess I'm definitely a half. This whole conversation has made me realize how optimistic I really am.
Me too. I think it's levels. And I'm so curious. I hope somebody does chime in, even anonymously, and shares, Yeah, I'd be the one who would look at that video and think, ugh, that kid's mouth is open. Because I'm curious if that's someone's default.
Yeah, and I mean, it's in a weird way, and this is one of my tips. So maybe this again, you'll have to tell me if I'm on the right track or I'm just a loony bin, because sometimes I feel like a loony bin. But one of my tips was having empathy as a way to be optimistic. And here's my logic. So I feel like when you could see things from another perspective, like I could see what that woman is saying. I could see
Yes.
her perspective. I feel like it gives me a different level of understanding instead of just reacting with the what I'll call the talk to the hand attitude. I'm raising my kids. Leave me alone. Like that would be that's a very pessimistic response. And that might have been my knee-jerk response. But then I kind of sit back and I think, well, I can see where she's coming from, and I could see. So I think having empathy and trying to be empathetic allows you to be more optimistic because you, I guess in a weird way, see the good in people because you're trying to understand where other human beings are coming from instead of being defensive immediately. I think so much so our default is to immediately be defensive instead of going, well, maybe they were value more than, I mean, and my conclusion was that person values prim and proper, whatever over happiness. Not that it's good or bad. I don't even want to say it's good or bad, but that's their priority.
Information. Yes,
my priority is something different. So I think by having a sense of empathy, we're able to kind of, I know maybe empathy is the wrong word. Compassion.
No,
I don't know.
Just the ability to pause and put yourself in the place of the other person. And they say that we see in others reflect back to us what we're putting out in the world. So when you're an optimist, you think, oh, I'm going to look kindly upon her because this is just what she values. It's not judgment against me. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I will have to add that and this might be kind of more, what's the word that I'm looking for, in defense of learned behavior, because I think initially people's reaction is to get defensive. I mean, of course it is. Someone's questioning your parenting style. They're questioning your children. They're questioning your knee jerk is going to be like, screw you, lady. Like, this is my family. Leave me alone. Like, that is your knee jerk. But if you step back and give yourself time to kind of be empathetic, you can kind of change it around a little bit. And then I feel like you also learn and grow and then build that optimism muscle, because when you're like, well, she has different priorities. Okay. And then when you become really secure in yourself, you don't have to take the defensive route. I don't know. I could blab about that forever. I'm fascinated.
Yes. And you realize everyone doesn't have to be the same as you are. I mean, if we were all optimists, like you said at the start, I think it would be very exhausting.
It would be exhausting. I can't remember where I saw it. I can't remember where I read it. I can't remember, but there was something out there that got on my radar. And it was something about when you realize that every person you interact with is bringing to the table their entire life's experience, just as you are, you kind of get a completely different perspective. You kind of break out of your controlled world and go, well, even if someone was like raised in a different part of the country or in a different culture, you have to it gives you a different kind of worldview or human view of humans when you realize all the baggage you bring into a conversation, someone is bringing all their baggage into that as well. Like, do you know what I mean?
I love that visual. Yes. Okay. I'm an optimist and more of a pessimist than I realized. That's my conclusion. A realist. I'm an optimist.
A realist.
I will be with you. Optimist with a slathering of realist.
Or a realist that skews optimist.
Optimist. Yes.
Yeah.
And I do. Please reach out to us. Let us know if you think I'm a pessimist and this is working for me and this is how. We would love to know.
Yes. Did you share all of your tips? Did you have any tips today to bring to the table besides
my two, the lark and the
that's right.
turning my words inside out? What is the best that can happen? Because that's what I meant when I said to myself, what's the worst that can happen? What I was really trying to say to myself is, this is going to be fine. But that wasn't what my words were saying. So it really took turning that inside out. What's the best thing that could happen? And the list of that was endless. So that definitely made me into more of an optimist.
Definitely. My last one was, and I'll do this right now at the very end of this podcast, would be acknowledging your strengths and weaknesses. So the reason why I asked you that was because I know myself and I tend to talk too much. And then I feel like I'm drowning you out. So then I thought, let me acknowledge that about myself. Well, I feel, well, and it's, in a weird way, it doesn't matter. It's my own perception of myself.
Yes.
So I think another way to be optimistic is to acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses in a almost unbiased way, which is hard to look at yourself in an unbiased way. But I think if you actually work on it, it allows you to be a more optimistic person because you don't stew on your weaknesses. You acknowledge them and then you move on.
And move on. Yes.
Yes. And I think owning that about yourself, like I'm an over talker. I talk too much. And sometimes I talk instead of listen, and I need to work on that. That's who I am. You kind of acknowledge it, you own it, and then you're able to be a little bit more positive versus becoming defensive about it, which I think to me, I equate to more of a pessimistic, I don't know, thing. You know what I mean?
And having the inability to move on. And this could be wrong, and give us feedback. The pessimists I see as more ruminators.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a pessimistic trait. Definitely.
Okay. We're optimists, realists, and I've got my Wicker of the week all ready to go because I am optimistic about wrapping up the podcast.
Wait, hold on, because you went out and I don't know. Sorry. We're on a slight delay.
Oh, we
I can. Yeah, we're on a slight delay, so I probably will edit that out. So let's end with our Wicker of the week.
Okay, I'm ready with my Wicker of the week.
Okay, me too.
I'm excited about mine because she used the Wick hashtag and tagged a big brand who responded. Fitbit.
No, did I miss? Oh, I missed this.
You may not have missed it. It said, my Fitbit battery is dead. I've misplaced the tool that gets the compartment open to change it. So looking for the tool counts as Wick, right? And this is Jen_Dawn_A, Jennifer. And I thought, yes, it's like losing that tool, walking around the house. Who cares? The steps still count, as you have taught me. Boom, my Wicker of the week. I love that.
I did see that one, and I did immediately. I'm not sure if I replied to her, but my immediate thought was, the steps still count.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
That. Yes.
Please don't be that person that says, I forgot my Fitbit. Everything I did at the gym today doesn't count. And I'm like, no, it still counts. Yes. All right. My Wicker of the week. That's funny. My Wicker of the week is from Instagram, and it's Real Mom of OC, who is also on Twitter at the same name, I think, because I saw it on Twitter, but then I realized. Yes. So it's Real Mom of OC, and she posted a screenshot of her run route, and she said, Wick run while the kids were in speech therapy. And she tagged it, Autism, Fit Mom, Galloway Train, which if people who know Jeff Galloway, it just made my heart happy because I thought, here's a mom who's raising an autistic child. She's juggling life, and she did it. She found time for her to take this 2-mile run, and just look, I'm going to get a tear in my eye. It just made me happy because it's like you have to see the. Because I'm proud of anyone who does that, because I really feel like it's so easy for us to use things as an excuse. Well, I had to take my kids to therapy. I can't get my run in today. Or my kids are at therapy. I'm going to steal that 20 minutes and get it. I just think that's it. That's the mentality. I'm just going to end right there.
I love both of them. It is exactly the mentality. Her taking that time and not seizing the excuse, and Jennifer losing the tool and knowing the steps still count.
Yes. Okay, that was such a fun conversation on optimism.
Okay, this optimistic realist is shouting Wick, and I cannot wait till next week.
Signing off. Wick, guys. Okay, we did it.
I loved it. I'm going to brain dump into the drafts before I take my parents out to lunch. So I'm going to run.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm going to try to edit it ASAP so it's ready to go and queued up for when I'm at the beach.
Okay. I'm going to go brain dump right now before I forget everything we talked about.
Okay. I will talk to you later.
Goodbye. Bye.